You're listening to Conflict Radio on the Conflict Radio Network. Greetings and welcome to Conflict Radio. Today is December 7th, 2020, and I wanted to bring Jared Murphy on for this interview because we have Mohamed Ibrahim from Egypt. And Jared, do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself and who our guest is?
Yeah, this is really exciting. So I wrote a book called It's Not, well, I guess everybody on Conflict probably knows now, but It's Not Aliens, Worse, It's Us, Discovering Our Lost History. And it's all about the connections between what we call prehistory, an ancient, advanced, high technology human race that likely survived natural and artificial and or weaponized catastrophe, and they are still here living amongst us, and there's a lot of evidence to that, and there's a lot of new things we're pulling up that are really interesting. And with that, there are people in the field like Mohamed Ibrahim, who is not only a tour guide, but I know he's connected to the Kemet school, and this is the old word for Egypt, and what he does is leads very detailed, not your average tours in Egypt. And he doesn't just go to the standard sites and gets you around. A lot of people would be great just to walk up to the Sphinx and walk to the Great Pyramid. But this is a man who knows everybody and knows a number of archaeologists and friends of mine, people who do work in Egypt. And he himself, besides, I'm sure he'll be able to talk more about who he is when we get him on the line, but he is definitely someone that you would want to connect with if you go to Egypt and you are going to get a tour from someone. This isn't something that you're just going to get a casual glance at a number of items. This is someone who can tell you not only the stories of the dynastic Egyptians, but the latest and most interesting theories on some of the larger ancient structures being maybe tens of thousands of years old, being frequency and resonance machines, that there are a number of finds and sites that point back to an older time before dynastic Egypt, and it's just going to be a great time talking to him.
And just so everybody knows, this is episode 50. Whoop, whoop. We made it to 50 episodes. Could you believe it?
Oh my gosh, really?
Yeah. Time certainly flies. Jared, the first time I had you on the show, it was episode 3.
Wow.
Just so we have an idea of how far we've come on this show. And I scheduled this interview for you because I know that this is going to be a fascinating guest for you. So I'm just going to sit back and let you do your research and let you have at it. And we'll be right back on Conflict Radio right after this. Welcome back to Conflict Radio. We've got Jared Murphy still with us, and we wanted to welcome Mohamed Ibrahim. He's from Egypt. He's going to have some fascinating stories to tell us about the pyramids. Mohamed, how are you doing today?
Hi, Michael. I'm doing great. The weather in Egypt is very nice now.
It's great to have you on the show, and we definitely appreciate you taking the time to spend with us. Jared, this is kind of right up your alley. You want to go for it?
I do. Thank you for entertaining us today and coming on the show. But before we start, I think it's important for people who, although there's a lot of listeners on Conflict and may know us, would you, I have a lot of, I think, more interesting questions, but you want to give us the 50,000 foot view of your background so people can have an idea of who you are?
Okay, my name is Mohamed Ibrahim, as you mentioned. I am a tour guide. And when we say tour guide in Egypt, it means that we have a tour guide. I have a university degree, Faculty of Tourism and Hotels, so which means I studied Egyptology. But not only Egyptology, because Egyptology concerns about ancient Egypt only. But as a tour guide, I studied ancient Egypt, I studied Greco-Roman Egypt, I studied Coptic Egypt, Islamic Egypt, and modern Egypt. In my studies, we studied also religion, ancient religion. We studied ancient Egyptian language, which mistakenly we call it hieroglyphic. So tour guide is a very qualified person can talk about all the Egyptian history. I worked in this field for 20 years now. I had the chance to meet so many personalities who are interested or very interested in the Egyptian history and the Egyptian sites, including Egyptologists. But the most interesting personalities are the engineerings, the geophysicists, geologists, and I can mention some names like Christopher Dunn, like Nassim Haramein, like Robert Schoch, and so many more. And I was lucky to share with them, and they shared with me their knowledge about ancient Egypt from different perspectives. And we started to create new stories. Of course, there are so many stories before I get into this field about the alternative opinions or stories about ancient Egypt that it doesn't stop at 3,500 BC. It goes older than this, and about redating the Sphinx and the pyramids, about using advanced technologies in ancient Egypt, and so many things like this. So that is my story in a very brief way.
Well, thank you so much, because that's just a good background. I have a big criticism of Western archaeology and research in that they don't give enough credit to either locals or any Eastern or native, any archaeologist, even in the continental South American area. It's always this perspective that it's everything important started with the Greeks and or Egypt, but it was the Fertile Crescent, it was the Garden of Eden, and it's this big Western perspective. And I just have a hard time with the fact that there are so many other people doing research and on the ground that are more local, who not only know what they're doing, but people like you who are, you're literally on top of the finds and you're there. And there are people who visit, but they keep often adding, like Christopher Dunn, breaking that paradigm and his research. And I have the Giza power plant and the Lost Ancient Technologies. I have both books. I've never gotten to be able to speak with him, but it's so fascinating, the work that's available to not only for people to just casually look at, but I appreciate the work you're doing. And on that note, I guess I wanted to start with the Osirion. And in your opinion, I know that something that people can do right now is they can go see a number of these sites, but there are areas outside of tourism, there are locked doors. So when it comes to like the Serapeum and the Osirion, I guess I'm going to ask you, I'll just ask you the same question for both. So the Serapeum and the Osirion have areas that you can't get to. But, whoa.
Hello?
Oh, okay. Sorry about that.
Yeah.
But yeah, what can you tell us if you weren't able to go on a tour? What in the Serapeum, how far does it extend that you can't visit is the first question. And same thing with the Osirion.
Okay. First, let me say yes, I agree with you about the giving the credits to the locals, because when you have a knowledgeable or educated local, and if we talk about Egypt, if you talk about an educated Egyptian, someone who studied the Egyptian history and all the side subjects about ancient Egypt, and he is visiting the sites daily or weekly, so he will have more sense. I will not say more knowledge first, no, more sense and then more knowledge, rather than any famous or any knowledgeable Egyptologist who lives outside Egypt. Especially when it comes to the ancient Egyptian language, which we still speak in modern Egypt, but unfortunately, most of the Egyptians, they don't realize that we speak ancient Egyptian. But as an educated person, I can understand that we do this, and I can understand so many other things. When we talk about the Serapeum, it's a tunnel under the ground, in Saqqara. It goes about 300 meters long. It's about 10 meters under the ground. And the length of the tunnel, which is entirely under the ground, it's about 300 meters long. And finally, or in the later, the late days of the last, let's say the last 2 years, we discovered another branch. The first tunnel we understand, and the one we can visit anytime, it goes from east to west. The new branch, the newly discovered branch, it goes from north to south. So when we talk about the first one, it has about 23 rooms, huge rooms, contains boxes, giant boxes, each box weighing from 50 to 70 tons. And if we add the lead, it will weigh from 70 to 100 tons. The majority of the boxes are from granite. Okay.
Yeah, so that's amazing.
Yes, the closed part, which is still under discovery, and they are doing some restoration, so it's not open for the visit yet. It has even a bigger box. It doesn't have, or according to what we know, they still didn't excavate all the tunnels, so they discovered like about 20 meters, but they expect more, and when they move forward. But they stopped at the level that there is the box is almost twice bigger than those giant boxes in the first tunnel. So when we go to the first tunnel and we see the size of the boxes, we are going to stare on it and feel amazing. But the closed part, it contains a box which is twice bigger.
That's amazing.
When you are standing, if you stand next to it, it will be, my height, I'm like 180 centimeters, okay? It is like double height of me. It's like about 3 meters high, minimum 3 meters or maybe a little bit more, okay? And it goes like 6 meters long.
Holy cow.
So the estimate weight would be at least 150 tons, and maybe with the lid, it will be around 200 tons.
Is the lid on it?
Yes.
And how many more are in the new section that's been... Was this a find that people forgot about, or is this literally a new find? And how long ago did you find out about it?
It's a new find because I visited this place a long time ago, 1987 or 88. Okay, I was like 11 years old then. And that section or that door was a wall at that time. So they closed the Serapeum 1995, and it was reopened 2012. When it was closed 1995, there was no any story or any idea about the second branch. But when it was reopened 2012, we found that iron door, which leads, or they put the iron door to block the way, or to block the chance for the people to go to this new discovery. So it was discovered around 2011 or 2012.
How many more boxes are there in that section?
So far, I can tell you for sure one. Okay, the one which is very clear to the sight, you can see it. But we think there are more than one. But as I told you, the place is still not completely discovered yet.
This is amazing. That box that's been discovered, is the lid on it, or is it been opened?
Yeah, the lid on it, but open. So there is a space you can go inside. The lid is slightly open.
So it was difficult for me over 4 years of research to retain some of what I didn't know would fit or not fit in my book. And it's all about ancient lost technology and a prior unknown advanced civilization. And one of the things I found was the boxes when they were first opened, and maybe you can remind me who, but I thought that the earliest discoverers had opened up or dynamited one of the boxes and they had found small bones, that it was just filled with small bones. Is that accurate?
Okay, that story is what we can call it 50-50.
Okay.
Okay. When Auguste Mariette, the French Egyptologist, found the Serapeum in 1860, he found all the boxes are open except one. There is one was sealed, and this will lead us to put their story to make our judgment in their story about using horses, using big cows, using hundreds of men to pull or to push the stones. So when he tried to open the box, he couldn't use any of these solutions they invented to convince us that that's what the ancient Egyptian used to do. So they couldn't move the lid 1 millimeter. So he had to use the gunpowder, or what we can call it dynamite. But it was gunpowder because dynamite wasn't discovered yet or made yet. And he exploded one of the corners of this box, which we can see clearly today, and we can see the broken pieces. And they managed to broke a hole, let's say a human body, like as a person, I can go, but not very easy. I need to squeeze a little bit. Okay, it's like, let's call it like the hole in the street, the sewer system hole.
Yeah.
Okay, that size. So by using gunpowder, they didn't even destroy the whole box. No, the box is huge and it's massive size. So till that part, I can tell you the story is accurate. That is what actually happened. But then the second part, it says he found lots of jewelry, lots of precious materials, gems and necklaces, and he found a mummy of a bull. So where are those jewelry? We don't know. No one has any idea about the place of such jewelry from the Serapeum. Okay, what about the mummy? His diaries, Auguste Mariette diaries, say it is the mummy of that bull is in the Agriculture Museum. It's a museum in Giza. So I took my family and visited the museum, and I kept asking everybody, where is the mummy of the Apis bull? No one seems to know any idea, until in a remote corner at the backside of the place, I found a skeleton, and there is a label saying the Apis bull, and then another skeleton, and then the third. I found 3 skeletons of bulls saying the Apis bull, which is not accurate because the story saying a mummy, and we all understand the shape or the look of the mummy. It's not a skeleton. Okay, so I suspect the story from that part. So we don't know for sure what was inside the box. It could be 2 options. The first one, he found something and it was taken away and they didn't want to say what. Or my favorite option, that they didn't find anything. The box was empty. But in this case, why it was empty? That will be a big question. Why we have an empty, closed box? That will open the gate to talk about energy, to talk about some other functions, rather than to be just a sarcophagus or a coffin for the sacred bull.
So, do you think, just in general speculation, how big do you think that this system, this single system is? Because there are either stories, or how accurate do you think there is of multiple levels of tunnels that are below this Serapeum? Do you think that there are an extensive tunnel system that does connect most of that area?
Look, according to my sense and my knowledge of this area, because I am locally from Saqqara, or the bigger city of Saqqara. So I visit this area thousands of times. So I can tell you maybe there are more branches, but it's still in the same level, which is like 10 meters under the ground. In that spot, connected with the Serapeum. But Saqqara itself, the big site, is full of tunnels systems. And one of the systems, which is under the step pyramid, it goes till 5,000 meters. And it goes deep 50 meters under the ground. And that is not the only system in the area. We have like at least 20 systems, not 20 tunnels, 20 networks of tunnels runs under Saqqara. And if we talk about Egypt in general, I can tell you we have networks of tunnels almost everywhere in Egypt. In Elmenia, and there is a place in Elmenia similar to the Serapeum, but in a bigger scale. And guess what? The locals or the keepers, they call each tunnel, they call it a street. They call it like street 1, street 2, the street to the left side, the street to the right side. Okay, because it is huge size. It is not a tiny tunnel. 1 or 2 people can walk to. No, it looks like a street of at least 6 or 8 meters wide. In Luxor, in Bani Hassan area in Elmenia, so in Alexandria, there is another place also called Serapeum, and it is under the ground. So I can tell you there are tunnels everywhere in Egypt.
How many do you think? Well, okay, not quantity. Which ones in your mind on the Christopher Dunn / alternative history? Which of the tunnels have stood out to you as being the most anomalous as far as having maybe polygonal construction or look like the Osirion? Are there tunnel systems that do appear to be incredibly well produced that aren't just maybe dynastic carve-outs or holes or you know what I mean? Are there tunnels
Yes.
that stand out to you which ones stand out to you as just crazy outside of what you were thinking you'd find?
Look, the easy answer for this question will be the Serapeum, okay? But because that is the one we have clear artifacts we can see like the boxes. But if I'm going to choose one, really fascinated me, and but it needs to be explored. It needs huge work to go and search because it's considered as a virgin place. The what they call it, the tombs, the birds and the monkeys' tombs under the ground in Tun al-Gabal in Elmenia. Elmenia, it's like Middle Egypt or like north of Upper Egypt. It is not very deep like Luxor and Aswan in the south. It's like south of Cairo. This is the place where I just said it contains a huge network of tunnels, and they call them streets. I can tell you there are hundreds or thousands of unexplored meters, maybe kilometers, goes under the ground, under the mountains. And so far, no one explored the whole site yet. They explored like 10% of it.
And how long have archaeologists been aware of this location?
All of them. It is like well known.
And why do you think only 10% have been dug up?
Because there are millions of pottery jars blocking the way. So it needs lots of work. It needs millions of dollars to clean and to bring the proper tools and the equipment. And maybe, if we agree about the conspiracy theory, that they don't want to reveal the secret of this place in the meantime.
Did you say millions of pottery jars?
Yes.
Are they like the ones at the step pyramid at Saqqara? Are they very translucent? Are they very well machined? Are they the same level of technology in these pots?
No. The ones in were under Saqqara pyramid made from stones, from alabaster, from diorite, from gneiss. But the ones in the tunnel I'm talking about made from clay.
Okay. So the tunnels, Yeah, could be obviously
add by
dynasty.
the dynasties. Yes. No.
Yeah.
Look, always must understand that there is a difference between the origin and the function, or the later, or the reuse.
Yes, the reuse. Yep.
Yes, there are hundreds of sites in Egypt were originally designed to serve something or a function, certain function, but by time, these are hundreds of years or maybe thousands of years later, it was reused at least one, maybe 2 or 3 times to serve another function.
Can you get into this site at all and see even the echo or can you see at least the 10% that you're talking about?
Yes, I visited this site many times, okay? And in many cases, I had such a very powerful flashlight, okay, which can goes for like hundreds of meters, but I couldn't see anything. It was like pitch black, like super dark distance, or let's say when I put beaming the light, I don't see anything.
Are the passages blocked floor to ceiling, or could you crawl your way through the rubble?
There are different designs, or like let's say the different ways. Some are completely blocked. The pottery jars are going to the top, completely sealed. Sometimes there is a huge hole in one of the corners. Sometimes, like there are different shapes.
But the walls themselves, is there hieroglyphs? Is there anything?
No, it will remind you with the
Do we lose him?
the images from the caveman style.
Okay, but it is interesting to you in that it looks.
Hello?
Oh, can you hear us?
Yeah, I'm back.
Yeah,
it's very plain. Yes, very plain. No decoration. Yes, no decoration. Even it's not smoothed wall. The walls are not smoothed. It seems to be a place for surviving.
But in your opinion, because they know how but how do they know how extensive it is as of yet? How do they know how? You said it goes into the mountains. Has it been explored at least to go through that?
Look, okay, this is what when we talk about Egyptologists, there are so many of their opinions we don't agree with. Okay, but we must not underestimate their knowledge. They have great knowledge about so many things. So by exploring thousands of the Egyptian sites over 200 or 300 years, so they had quite great sense and knowledge about each site. So when they explored some few sections from that place, they understood that the shape of the other unexplored site. So from seeing 10%, they managed to understand the story of the rest of the 90%. And that was the case in many other sites. They find one tomb in one place, so they can understand where are the rest of the tombs, if there's one family or relatives.
Okay. Yeah.
So they managed to imagine the view of the place, which I agree with.
Well, and this is what's most interesting to me, because you're one of those people who know exactly this kind of information, where people might come and visit one thing but not realize that there's something more interesting to go see. At the same time, Jennifer Deo, the archaeologist that I'm friends with, and she had pointed out to me that there is a museum, and I don't want to jump around, but I have to ask you, since you're here and I'm so happy you're on, is that she mentioned that there is hieroglyphically covered, so many centimeter thick actual top casing of either the Great Pyramid, that is, I guess, pieces that did survive. Is that true, that they're in a small section of one of the museums in Cairo, and that you can actually see some of the absolute top stone casing, that it still does exist in some small sections?
Yes, but I must fix the story a little bit. We have what we call it Pyramidion. It's a small pyramid. It's about 1 meter or 1.5 meter high. Okay, it's a small pyramid. You can impress it with your hands, like you can hug pyramid with your hands, with an inscription like one line goes the bottom level, okay, made from one solid piece of diorite and sometimes granite, sometimes alabaster. And we know for sure that this used to be the stone of the pyramid, but not pyramids. The pyramid, what we call it, the Middle Kingdom pyramids, which is like thousands of years later. They attributed Giza pyramid the Old Kingdom, which is around 2,600 BC. Of course, I don't agree with this. It is much older. And the Middle Pyramids, it's about 2000 BC. And it seems to be that the Middle Kingdom pyramids are dynastic pyramids. It doesn't reflect high technology. Okay, so this is the shape of the Pyramidion Jen Day was talking about. It could be a copy from something they saw earlier. It could be something in their memories that maybe the capstone of the Great Pyramid, as an example, look like this. And it could be from other precious material. But we don't have something definite to use it as an evidence.
Of the things that you've seen, and for as much as there is alternative research or anyone looking at the anomalies in Egypt, what stands out to you as something that isn't spoken about as much, that might be that ancient lost high technology? Is there something that stands out to you as just really brilliant that no one seems to be talking about, or something you've seen?
Yes. Look, we cannot deny that we didn't find any tool from what we are talking about. All the tools we found are the primitive tools, which is a good sign also, okay? Because when you find only primitive tools and then you find very high quality of products, and those tools cannot do such products, then you expect other types of tools. So we didn't find any advanced tools, but we found the effect of the tool in many places. The effect or the mark of the cut, which if you bring any of the modern workers dealing with such machines and take him to such places, either the Egyptian Museum or Giza Plateau or in Saqqara, and show him the cut and tell him what tool can do this cut. He will tell you, my tool. The mechanical blade, the circular disc. It could be kind of a machine dealing with ultrasonic. And we are not imagining this. As we say in Egypt, every thing, or let's say, call it every humans, okay? Or I always love to use this example. Homicide crimes, the doctor can say he dies a kind of gun, and the man who killed him was right-handed or left-handed, or it was a big blade, short blade, right? We know things like, right?
Yeah.
Okay, same thing in technology. When you use a tool to do something, a cut, or to do a carving or a polishing, the talented person or the professional worker can tell you what kind of tool was to do this. And that's what Christopher done, who was a master craftsman for a long time and managed to recognize the effect of the tool. That's why he managed to tell the tool. Okay, so one of the great things I love to talk about when it comes to high technology, obelisk. The obelisk in ancient Egypt, this is, in my opinion, the greatest thing done in ancient Egypt, even in the pyramids, in my opinion. And it required only advanced technology. It required advanced technology, more advanced than the technology we have nowadays. When it comes to one single piece of stone, yeah.
Oh, I agree with you because I know that I've seen video of even broken pieces of obelisks and just tapping them with your hand, they ring, and there's no possibility that that's an accident. And I'm wondering if of the obelisks that I'm sorry, I'm going to let you continue, but I'm wondering if you can also add in, when it comes to the obelisks, have you been able to identify? There's so many obelisks that were stolen by Europeans, but of the ones that are left or even in situ, were they any particular frequencies, and what were the stands that they were on? Would you think that a lot of them were still in their original locations, or do you think that the dynastic Egyptians maybe moved them around also? But do you know of any set positions in reference to the technology that
look.
Yeah.
Okay.
We lost you, man.
Oh, maybe we.
Mohamed, are you there? I can't hear you.
He's still on, but we can't hear him. Maybe he can come back in.
Well,
do you want to call him back?
No, he's still connected. Up now, we lost him. All right, let's just take a break on Conflict Radio. We'll be right back right after this. Welcome back to Conflict Radio. We've got Mohamed back. Go ahead, guys.
Okay, you were about to describe some of the if there were any obelisks still in original look. Yeah.
We have two still in the same location in Karnak Temple, and one still in front of Luxor Temple, and one in Cairo, and that the one in Cairo is the one of the oldest according to the timeline. So I am saying that no one can move the obelisk, but the question is, what about the obelisks in Europe now, in the European cities like in Paris and London? Okay, so I shall change what I said. No one can move the obelisk and take it out from its original place without doing a damage to it. If you go to I think there are 13 obelisks outside Egypt. They are all representing two groups. They are all in between two groups, either broken obelisks, not complete, like the one in Istanbul, the one in Rome, and in Rome, they are not the complete obelisk. It was broken and they took half or 2/3 of it. Or small obelisks, like the one in Paris, they didn't take the big obelisk, like the one in Karnak Temple, we call it Hatshepsut obelisk, which weighing around 700 tons. This one, no one can move it. If they move it, they will break it. And that's what happened. If you visit Karnak Temple, you will see scattered pieces of broken obelisks. What happened? That they were trying to take it out of the site, but it was destroyed. Because when they mess with the balance of the obelisk, then it will be easily broken. So that will lead us to the beginning, how they made it. If they cannot move it without breaking it, how they cut this huge piece from the quarry, how they take it out, and how they put it upright in the site like this.
So what of the obelisks that you've seen then, or what, as far as the personality that's, we were talking I mentioned frequencies or what they were tuned in for. What's your speculation or what are your theories on the obelisks? Maybe original purposes.
Can I get back to you in 5 minutes? I am in the parking area and I will lose the signal.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's
Yeah.
just take a break, guys. We'll be right back on Conflict Radio right after this. Welcome back to Conflict Radio. We are back. We've got Mohammed back, and I'll just let you guys go ahead and pick up where you were.
Yeah. Do you remember where you were, Mohammed?
Yes, we were talking about the obelisk and
Yes.
what was the challenges to cut the obelisk and to transfer the obelisk out of the quarry and then to move the obelisk either to Luxor or to Cairo. Every step. So I'm not saying every level, every step, every single inch moving this obelisk is a great challenge, not for the ancient Egyptians, but for our modern technology. When we talk about the unfinished obelisk in the quarry in Aswan, in the granite quarry, which they were doing the job. Something wrong happened and the obelisk was left abandoned, but they were finishing the job. So it means that they had the ability to finish it, to move it, and to put it in its place. Okay, if you take this project to any giant group or let's say facility and tell them or ask them, can you do this job? I believe that no one will say yes, because it will require a work of for years with millions of, if not billions of dollars. So the question is, if the obelisk is very hard project like this, so what was the need to do something like this? This will lead us to the story of healing and energy and also technology. But in this case, technology from a different way. We are not talking about machines anymore, but we are talking about the knowledge of frequencies, the knowledge of radioactive energies, the knowledge of electromagnetic fields, okay, because they were targeting a certain type of stone, which is rose granite. And rose granite is the best type of granite, contains crystal, or we can call it quartz. 13% of its molecular structure is quartz. There are other types of granite contains quartz, but like 5%, 7%. Rose granite of Aswan, which is a unique stone, by the way, exists in Aswan only. We have granite in Sinai, we have granite in other places in the whole world, but not the same like the rose granite of Aswan. So it contains 13% of quartz in its molecular structure. And we know by science that granite is a natural radioactive stone. So imagine if you have such a big piece weighing 700 tons or 1,000 tons or 1,200 tons. So we are talking about a giant piece of quartz interacting with the second piece, because when we talk about the obelisk, it is not an individual thing. They are twin. Each obelisk has a twin, one on the right side, one on the left side,
Like
flanking
tuning
all
fork.
the gates. Yes, there must be two, not just one. And two here are opening the gate for the question of why two? It will be double work, not so they can, if we can say, they can hardly finish one, so they need to do the same work again for the second one.
Wow.
Okay. So the obelisk in this case, in my opinion, this is the best example for the ancient Egyptian advanced technology and advanced knowledge.
What of the ones that of the ones that are in place, what do they sit on? What is their foundational positioning? Are they just, there must be, one of my fascinations, Mohammed, is with engineered soil like Terra Preta in Brazil. It's also in Northern Africa. It's in Australia. I don't know if you're familiar with engineered soil, but this is soil that are biochars that have been made by ancient peoples, and it's not something that is looked at frequently. And I have a background in construction, different than Christopher Dunn's machining, but in historical remodeling, which where I live, everything is a joke compared to the age where everything is where you are. Everything is thousands of years, and the stuff I deal in is different. But when it comes to soil, what I found in my research was that, and as a construction person with engineering in my background also, that I found that the very foundation of these polygonal constructions, very little research has been done on the density and the complexity of the very foundational material that the buildings have been started on. That the platforms, it's not a matter of it just being a large, thick stone. As a construction guy, I've been wanting to dig into the core sampling of how they have pre-compacted and what are the qualities of the minerals and the materials right down to the nanostructure. What are the materials that they have chosen to pre-compact and how deep before they put the first row or course of these high-tech blocks? And in the same way, so I want to ask you two questions. One is, when they set these obelisks, they have to set them on a very steadied foundation, and it's not a matter of it just being the block. Have you seen any research into the foundational material itself that they're sitting on? Because the other question is terra preta, which is just Portuguese for black earth in Brazil, that they find in North Africa and they find in Australia. I'm wondering, in the area of some European researchers and seismic metamaterials, that not only were they building with polygonal blocks to either mute or act as wave resonators for frequencies, but I think they were sifting and adjusting and engineering the soil to have the same effect between buildings, but more so also in the foundational material itself. Have you seen any deconstruction or core sampling of the foundational material itself of the most ancient megalithic buildings? So those are my two questions.
Yeah, my clear answer, no. Zero research, or not only research, but zero intention to use such kind of science in this field. Unfortunately, when it comes to Egyptology, you must put science away. But what you are saying is completely logical. Yes, we must talk about this. We must think how or what was the way they decided this is the right place, because we are not talking about a small building.
No.
As an example, the pyramids, we are talking about a number of stones creating millions of tons. We are not talking about just a place with 10 tons or 20 tons or even 50 or 100. We are talking about millions of tons. When it comes to the obelisk, we are talking about 700 or 1,000 tons, but focused on a very small spot.
Yes. And
okay, so that must be a very scientific research happened by the ancient Egyptians. And I used to tease with Dr. Robert Schoch, and he's a famous geologist. I told him, that the ancient Egyptian is a better geologist than all the geologists I know. The ancient Egyptian was a master in dealing with geology, dealing with stones. He managed to understand all the needs and the requirements of the environment, how to cut the stone first and how to place the stone. I will tell you something interesting. They understood that if you cut, if you are building, let's say, a temple or a pyramid or anything, when you cut from the surface of the quarry, this block is the one will be put on the surface of the temple or the structure. From the core of the quarry, it will be inside the core of the structure. from the east side of the quarry will be on the east side of the structure, as if they're trying to give the same environment or the same uh, natural, daily natural effect to the stone. But if they switch or they put the stone who is always in shade or in the core, they will put that stone outside, it will be exposed to the sun for a long time, and that stone is not having the ability to stand against the sun this way. So the stone will be affected badly. And the stone from the east side, if you put the stone in the west side or the opposite in the north side to the south, so they're going to lose the structure in a short time. But they give the same conditions to the stones. So what kind of brilliant geologist was the ancient Egyptian?
I have a question, if I can.
Yeah.
Do you think that it
Yes.
was? Do you think that it's possible that it was like a Stargate, like it was an entry portal to something?
Which one?
The obelisk.
Talking about the obelisk? Look, I don't deny it could be, because again, when it comes to the stories about quartz and about magnetic field and electromagnetic energy, it could be. I can say they may be used for in several ways. One of the ways is healing, like dealing with the energy of the body, absorbing the negative energy from the body and recharging the body with positive energy. And it could be a portal. Yes, you may cross and you will be somewhere else or some other dimension.
Wow.
Maybe it's a physical transformation, or maybe it is high consciousness, not necessarily the body, but maybe the brain or the thoughts. Yes, those options are available, in my
I,
opinion. So we cannot say or deny any of these functions.
Wow.
well, and
And why I say that, let me add this. Someone can say Muhammad is exaggerating. Now that is like too much. I shall remind this person, she or he, that look to the challenges, cutting and finishing this impossible project. And I repeat, and I shall uh, convince people with this. It is impossible project. So when you do something very hard, or we can call it very impossible to do it, it means that the function of it is very important.
I think having the chance to speak with you for the first time, and because of my interest in the research from the beginning, I I have to go back, and I wonder, because the idea that in the beginning we looked for antiquities that were artistic, that were valuable. It was a very base interest to look for gold, to look for something that would stand out and draw visitors in a museum, and to validate our theories that eventually. But in the earliest days, it was for antiquity theft. It really was an issue of art. Now, as we look at the constructions themselves, and like you said, with the obelisks and their existence like a tuning fork into the ground, I think, and in my research, and like I said, I spent 4 years on this, and if I hadn't been a historical remodeler and someone who's interested in engineering, I understand foundations. And the issue that I have is that it has not been sexy or interesting for people to not find a mummy or gold or objects or the Rosetta Stone, but to find the complexity of the foundation material itself under each of these buildings. I'm wondering if you have any thoughts, like if money wasn't the issue, what is the most advanced or oldest foundation that you've seen, or the most interesting, as far as most high technology, advanced looking construction, where if you could get a sampling of the foundational material itself and its depths, I don't mean its lowest course of blocks. I mean, what's holding it up? How and what material did they use to pre-compact? And even the technology, not just in making the obelisk, Mohammed, but for me, it's the technology. Like, what if we find from core sampling that they pre-compacted soil to almost 100%? What we mistake for bedrock is actually a pre-compaction material, and its entire depth is because they laid it intentionally so that the building would not shift left or right or sideways or whatever. But is there a building to you that stands out that would be one, if we were to core sample that foundational material, that would interest you?
Yes, the Great Pyramid.
Because there is no actual
Pyramid?
understanding of what it's standing on, correct? There are blockings,
Yes.
but the blocks I notice have polygonal and those little S curves and hooks like on the platform. I noticed they're very complex, and those are very large blocks, correct? The ones that people walk on in the area around.
Exactly. Yes.
And those are just blocks, right?
Mm-hmm.
So then there's something underneath them.
Yes. Look, we know for sure, and I didn't study this, but I saw this after I get more experience by visiting the sites and more since. I managed to see that some of what I mistakenly used to call them blocks, they are from the bedrock. It is like they carved the bedrock to look like a block, and it is part of the design. It's part of the building, and it goes like 3 courses from the base. You can count one course, like 3 courses, like let's say 3 levels of blocks above each other. And I'm not sure how deep or how high it goes inside the Great Pyramid, but I'm guessing that it goes at least to 1/3 of the height of the pyramid. So I can get, if I have the chance to go under the pyramid, but not from the existing tunnel. I'm talking about actually under the foundation of the pyramid, and see how they designed the base before they built the pyramid. I think that part or that level of the project is the most important. Maybe it was much harder than building the pyramid itself.
I totally agree.
Under the Great Pyramid, and of course all the pyramids, but the Great Pyramid for me is the best example for many reasons, because when we talk about the numbers of the stones, about the alignment, about the location itself of the Great Pyramid, so I feel that they did great work dealing with the foundation. And by the way, there is, as you said, so many people, when they go to the site, they focus on very common things. They look for writings. They try to find some carvings, colors, and as you said in the earlier days, gold, silver, some precious materials. But they don't care about angles. They don't care about the size, about the perfect smoothed surfaces. There is something most of the people didn't realize, which is that the base of the pyramid, when you go to Giza Plateau, and you are like 20 meters away from the Great Pyramid, standing above the bedrock, if you focus, you will realize something interesting, that the base of the Great Pyramid was sunken, that the right way to say it, sunken, or it is below the bedrock about 20 centimeters. Okay?
Okay. So it was cut in?
Yes. So as if they cut a square and they made it deeper than the surrounding bedrock, 20 centimeters. 20 or 30. I didn't have the chance to measure, but it's not more than 30 centimeters. So this is something interesting, as if they try to fit the pyramid in certain measurement, in certain level. There's not just smoothing the surface or smoothing the bedrock and preparing a flat ground and then they build the pyramid. No, it was about this. It was about mathematics. It was about perfect mathematics. Each block in this pyramid was made according to a very restricted design.
So do you think that, okay, I really want to keep talking about foundations because I have talked every month about this for months since my book came out in February, and I'm trying to get people more and more interested, and I don't care. I don't want to hoard the information. I want every researcher and on everyone's radar that one of the most overlooked, under-researched, and most important aspects, whether it's Ollantaytambo, Tiwanaku, to everything in Egypt and Baalbek, Lebanon, wherever there are megalithic constructions with polygonal blocks, that the foundation itself, that the very soft soil that's been pre-compacted, the composition of that soil, the intensity in which it's been compacted, and the material could be, right now we imagine the Aswan, we imagine the thousands or hundreds of miles that the big blocks come from. But what if, my hope is that when we look at the foundational material itself, that we're going to find that there could be crushed material from a whole nother quarry from maybe another continent, or it's a nanomaterial, something artificial, and they're called seismic metamaterials, materials that are even down to the nano size that help mute and or control earthquakes, and that the foundation itself of the Great Pyramid it may not just be on bedrock, that it's either a pre-compacted material, or I guess I should ask you, if it is solid, is it solid? But then, like you said, you want to know what's under the foundation also. But I'm also wondering why not much attention on a resonance and frequency. Why isn't the star shape of the Great Pyramid pointed out more? Do you think it's just structural, or do you think it really was star-shaped?
Yes, star-shaped. You talk about the angle, the central angle of each side?
Yeah, that was noticed by that RAF pilot, and no one ever. It's pointed out as a novelty, but it's not a four-sided pyramid. It's and I'm wondering what are the exact measurements of that? And I constantly beat my head about what would be the frequencies or resonance created by surrounding obelisks that
let me add to you that we can see this also clearly in the Red Pyramid at Dahshur.
Yeah, and Menkaure is also some of the smaller ones. They're 8-sided.
Yes, exactly.
And I see it, but why? And it gets pointed out as a novelty, but I'm wondering if the frequency and resonance, what the change would be of an object, whether it's a power plant or whether it's a resonator. What is I don't know. What are some of your opinions on it? Because it's
Let me tell you a very interesting story. The answer of this question is hidden in a story was told by the Egyptologist. When you walk around the Giza Plateau, or exactly the Great Pyramid, especially from the east side, you will find, of course, when you look to the structure of the building, you will see the stones or the blocks were built in what we call it interlocking design. Okay, so the stone next to another stone, but the stone above the edge is not touching the edge below. It's like one. I don't know how to explain it, but the one above the two will be on the center. Okay. So we'll cover half of this block and half of that block. You know what I mean? We call it the stony style, okay?
Yeah.
Or interlocking style. And then when you walk around the Great Pyramid, what we can call it the platform around the pyramid, which is like one level of stones. Okay, not huge blocks. It's about half meters high, but sometimes wide, creating this kind of a huge walk side around the pyramid. If you focus on these blocks, and I always take my clients during my tours and see them and talk about them, it's like a puzzle shape. Okay, they are not perfect squares or perfect rectangulars arranged together to create this platform. No, they are creating, or they look like a huge puzzle. Many of the stones have more than 4 angles, and there is one particular stone has 8 angles. Okay, it was cut like that stone in Peru on the wall. You know what I'm talking about? There is a stone on the wall with 8 angles surrounded by 8 stones. So we have the same in Giza Plateau, okay, but on the ground. So that block is surrounded by 8 blocks. So Egyptologists, in Egyptology, when they wanted to explain why this design was made like this, they said that the ancient Egyptian was afraid that an earthquake will happen, so the design will dismantle. Okay, so here is the question. Do we have such a kind of strong earthquakes in Egypt? No, we don't. Not only strong earthquakes, but we don't have earthquakes at all. In the last 2,000 years, we had only 4 earthquakes, and we had the 5th 2 days ago. And it was like 5 degrees, which was like, okay, we just have a very slight vibration. I felt it from my house 2 days ago. So Egypt is very stable ground. So from the ancient days, we don't have earthquakes. So what is the story? The Egyptologist said that this design is to resist the earthquakes. But if we delete or replace the word earthquakes with the word vibrations, so it was designed like this to resist vibrations. We have another question. If we say yes, vibrations, from what? What is the source of these vibrations? Is the pyramid itself, the site itself, the engine. So if this pyramid was acting like a power plant, and I always love to say it is not its only function, it is one of its functions. So it will vibrate. So the 8 sides are going to support the structure, and the puzzle shape or the puzzle design of the stones will support the structure. So every design like this is supporting the structure. The foundation, which containing part of the bedrock is playing the same, supporting the structure. Okay. So when you talk about resonance, vibrations, yes. And this is the sign. The puzzle design and the interlocking design and the 8-sided design.
Do you see any other design? Oh man, I got so many questions. But the design, I think the 8-sided point is so important because it seems to be ignored by archaeologists. It seems to be ignored by Egypt. The standard model is that it's a 4-sided thing, but it's not. And so when we get down to the soil, when we get down to the placement and the frequencies or what the resonance would be of the obelisks from the ground and from these interlocking blocks, have you seen, as far as any other either machines, pillars, columns, anything else that seems to be more about resonance than about structure?
Yes. There is what we call it the unfinished box inside the Egyptian Museum in Cairo. That
Yes, I know
box,
about that.
yes, if you look to the box from the front, it is almost finished. Big box,
Yes.
okay, very from rose granite, was cut in a perfect way. I'm talking about the front. Okay, you are at the front and you see a perfect box. It needs like maybe the final touch, and it will be super example. Okay, but when you move to the back side, you'll find something strange, that it seems to be something wrong happened, and we realized that there is a design of a lid from the backside, and they were cutting the lid from the backside of that block. So they brought the block, they made the front part of the box, and then they were cutting that slice to play as a lid. The lid was broken in the midway. Something wrong happened to the machine, and the lid is broken. So guess what happened? That stone was neglected. We found it buried under the ground, under sand. So they didn't use it, which will bring a very important question. Why? Why they waste so much time and material? Okay, if we are doing this, or any rational person will continue cutting this broken piece of the lid, and will cut the lid from any other stone or any other block, any other piece of granite will play as the lid, and it will be a very nice looking sarcophagus, as they claim. And the word sarcophagus here, it gives us the function. Sarcophagus is the Greek word for something like coffin. It is something related to death, to the mummy. But that's why I prefer to call it box. So it will be a very nice looking sarcophagus. So what happened? Why they didn't do this? Again, we talk about the function. It is not meant to be a sarcophagus. It is a box of resonant, a box of energy. So we have now two questions. Why they didn't reuse it, or why they didn't cut the broken piece of the lid and they provide another piece? And the second important question, why they must cut the lid from the back side, not from the front? Because they did what we can call it the hard job first, and then the easy job later, which it doesn't fit our common sense. If I'm going to do this as a professional worker in a stone factory, I will cut the lid first and then work on the box. But the ancient Egyptians did the opposite. Okay, the answers. Number one, they didn't use any other piece to work as the lid, because it will have different density, different molecular structure, different amount of quartz. It must be from the same block to match each other. And from the back side, because when they take this lid and put it on the top of the box, they will flip the current. So instead of going one way, it will be opposite to each other. So as if it will be like creating like the phi, the infinity symbol. One current goes up from the box itself, and one current goes down from the lid. So as if we have continuous energy up and down all the time, a self-running machine, self-running frequency machine. So that is my explanation about the unfinished books.
I think it's completely possible. It makes the most sense if you have a society that can engineer soil, like Terra Preta, and the identical soil is in North Africa. I know that a lot of it's desert now, but that same engineered soil is the most fertile growing soil, It filters heavy metals, carbon dioxides. It filters, but it also has electromagnetic properties, and it's identical to that in Brazil and Central America and in Australia. This is the same recipe. This is the same soil. There is a similar engineered soil from Siberia to North America and Canada. And if you have a society that can create giant earth circuits like the Nazca lines and the Bolivian Nazca lines and the Jordan Nazca lines and the ones in Russia, the reality is this society, knowing resonance and frequency and having the technology, not just people, we're trying to figure out how they cut, but they measured the frequencies, not only of what they were trying to accomplish in seismic metamaterials for, well, we don't want to have an earthquake or we want to be able to survive, the building must survive, but they were using it to communicate energies, and not just for energy, but for communication, but also probably and possibly healing. My personal thought was that the very idea of becoming a mummy was simply because the line to hit the healing chambers got too long, and that nothing wasn't not fixable, but eventually the only thing that survived was the religion of mummification versus the technology of entering one of these resonating chambers. But either way, 2 questions on hieroglyphs and the chamber in the Great Pyramid. It does, like you said, it seems multifunctional. And I'm rereading, I'm reading for the first time Sir Flinders Petrie's assessment as he entered the Great Pyramid to do his measurements in 1880. And he discussed finding a lid, or what he described as broken pieces of a lid that was further down the hallway from that, well, if we want to call it a sarcophagus. So I'm wondering if you know anything about those broken pieces that he found and whether or not maybe they were part of the lid of that resonating chamber within the Great Pyramid. But also, I know that there's muons being used to identify hidden areas within the Great Pyramid. So I don't know how much time we have to touch on whether or not you think any permits will be given to dig any further into the structure of the building or the other pyramids, and that broken lid. And then the last question on hieroglyphs are, of the hieroglyphs you see, which ones seem like the most machined and well produced? And I'm wondering if you've noticed if the dynastic Egyptians adapted what was a forgotten or abandoned, like whoever created the hieroglyphs originally. I'm wondering if, because Jen Dale pointed out that some of the hieroglyphs look like they're laser cut or resonant cut, that they are very fine, that they are just not done with copper tools or scratched into the surface of the boxes at the Serapeum, that they're very well done hieroglyphs. And personally, my thought was that the dynastic Egyptians came across a pre-existing abandoned cities, and with it, hieroglyphs. And I'm wondering if the sentence structure of what you know of hieroglyphs, that some of the oldest and of these high-tech ones, I'm wondering how they don't or do translate. Like they seem kind of funny, like they don't translate the way you would think they would. And are they the ones that are the most finely cut? Like the ones that look like they've been laser cut. And I guess there's 3 questions for you.
Okay. This is a multi question.
I'm so sorry, but I'm not. I'm so sorry.
Okay.
I'm so excited to talk to you.
Okay. I will answer all of it. So let's first set something very important, that we shall not underestimate the dynastic technology. Okay, the dynastic technology, which of course not advanced like we say about the other technology, but they were very educated people. They learned it from hundreds of years of experiments and of using tools and techniques. So they did great job. But when it comes to granite and when it comes to the huge blocks, then we shall not consider this techniques or this experience are not going to do such megalithic structures or statues, and also are not going to cut the stone perfectly like some of the stones we see. Okay, because so many people, unfortunately, they keep calling everything, they call it, look, this is advanced technology, that cut advanced. No, it's not. There are so many great products, but I can tell you it was made by the dynasties. Yes, it was made by Old Kingdom or Middle Kingdom or New Kingdom, because we cannot deny that those people must develop, okay? And they spent 3,000 years. So it is very logical to understand they developed. But when it comes to, as I said, to the very precise cut, especially on granite, then we must think about really advanced technology. If we talk about hieroglyphs, which can mean or can give us a hint that it is something, it can give us an idea about technology. Yes, there is a symbol called Wa. Wa is like one, and it is also used in a word called Sem priest. Okay, that is a kind of a priest is dealing with a certain function in the temple. There was so many types of priests, not just one. Each one was responsible for doing something. There was what we call him the purification priest. And by the way, there was a priest for the Ka. The Ka is what we can call it the ghost, or your spirit, not your soul, the spirit, your energy field, your aura, your desires, your abilities to survive. That is all can be called the Ka. So there was like a psychic, okay, and other types of priests. So the same priest, that tool looks like a mechanical tool. It reminds me with the gun. I don't know the name of it. That machine, they use it to hunt whales in the old ships 200 or 300 years ago. Okay, do you know what I'm talking about? Those ships to hunt the whales.
Yes. Yeah.
They used to shoot a harpoon, okay, from something looked like a cannon or a big gun. Okay, so that tool looks exactly the same. It's like a huge tube with like a harpoon inside, and there is like an arm, mechanical arm. Okay, so this is, in my opinion, when I focus in this tool, I can see it a mechanical tool. It's not just a symbol, not just a piece of wood or a branch or something, because most of the ancient Egyptian letters are imitation from the environment, birds, animals, parts of birds, sun, moon, trees, like this. Okay, but there are other symbols are not part of the environment. They are things were done by the ancient Egyptians, like jars, like tools. Also in Karnak temple, and I made a video about this. I called that place the chemical lab. It seemed that all the symbols were leading to a chemical recipe. All the symbols are like and I want you to help me because my vocabulary in this field is quite weak. When you go to the lab and you have all these glass equipments.
Beakers?
What do you call it?
Beakers.
Yes, different types of beakers. One with 2, one with 3, one with 4, as if the liquid will go and will have a kind of a circulation inside twice or 3 times or 4 times. Okay. Big containers, small containers, containers in a circle shape, containers in like T shape, letter T, vertical containers, and all has the symbol gold and the symbol silver next to it, as if they're trying to say that two of the major chemical elements the ancient Egyptians were using were gold and silver, plus copper, plus lapis lazuli. I think the chemical content of lapis lazuli was also important. Okay. Many people will tell you that also there are the famous hieroglyphics in Abydos temple, the helicopter, the submarine, the UFO.
Yeah.
No, I don't agree much with this. I may have a very strange opinion. I'm not supporting the two famous teams talking with it. The first team is saying, yes, they are actual machines, helicopter and submarine. And the second group saying, no, they are just two layers of writings above each other. And by rare coincidence, they happen to look like this. Okay. I combine between the two opinions. Yes, definitely there are two layers of writings above each other. This can be seen easily. And with cameras, good cameras with a good lens, you can see that there are two layers of writings above each other. But coincidence will not give you 4 different symbols. Coincidence will give you 1, maximum 2, but not 4. So I call it's a prepared coincidence. It was made deliberately to look like this. But the man who made it, he understood that this is going to be the result.
So,
okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So yeah, go ahead. Sorry, go ahead.
Okay. Also in that temple, there are, in Abydos temple, there are clear symbols, talks about also machines, or we can call it abilities. There is what we call it the birdman. The birdman, it's a man with 2 arms and 2 like a complete shape of the man we understand, plus 2 wings under his arms. If this man, like so many other examples, has only 2 wings without arms, they replaced the arms with wings, that will be easy to explain, that they talk about the spirit, they talk about the afterlife, that he is going to fly away or to ascend to the sky. But no, this one, they are telling us he's a complete person with extra 2 wings. So we understand that they are not talking about a man with this description. No, they were talking about ability, that he has the ability to fly. So we are facing 2 options, that he was a person really looked like this with 2 wings and can fly. Okay, it's a kind of mutation. Or they were talking about his ability and he was using a machine to fly. And this was the easiest way to tell us about this story. They couldn't tell us or show us the machine, but they showed us that this person is able to fly.
So do you think in the writings themselves that there are the hieroglyphs that you've seen that appear to match this period in technology and knowledge, but they don't appear to say something in what's understood of ancient Egyptian? Do they appear to not make sense? Because
so many of the writings?
Yeah, not because, again, there was 2 parts. One is that it appears that some of the technologies are more, some of the hieroglyphs appear to be cut with the same technology that made the boxes in the Osirion, or not the Osirion, in the Serapeum. That there's technology that is clearly more advanced, and even though the dynastic Egyptians were advanced, is there hieroglyphs that appear to be very ancient, very well cut and placed in either the temples now or in some of the structures? And do they just appear to have sentence structures that don't match up with dynastic language? Do they appear
Yes,
to?
look, remember when I told you that we found many of the primitive tools?
Yes.
And I said we are lucky that we did find such tools. Okay, so let me tell you some facts. Any carvings on sandstone or limestone, and it doesn't matter how beautiful, how accurate, how super it is, it could be dynastic and could be made by a copper chisel, because these are soft materials, limestone and sandstone. Okay? So we shall not pay attention much to any carvings or writings on limestone or sandstone. It will be a waste of time and will lead us to nothing. But we focus on hard stones, granite, alabaster. Alabaster is not hard like granite, but alabaster is a challenge. It's a stone close to glass. So if you don't have the proper tool to carve on this glass, or if I can call it wrongly, I know, glass stone, you will break it. It will be broken with any pressure. So they must have a very sensitive tool, but also very effective. But when we talk about granite, when we see very perfect writing on granite, we shall expect that these writings were made by advanced tool. Do we have something like this? Yes, many. In many sites. Number one, in many of the obelisks, you will see that the writings above the obelisk as if it was made by the same tool which cut and polished the obelisk. There are some stones in Luxor, in Ramesseum temple. You can see that the perfect details when they make like an owl or a falcon, they made the eyes, the feathers, the leg, the tail, as if they are doing carvings on a very soft material like cheese or like something even like gypsum. But in the other side, there are so many carvings on granite, but it doesn't reflect the same talent, it doesn't reflect the same technology. It reflects the dynastic technology, iron tools. That's why it is not deep enough like the first example. It is not perfect enough like the first example. The corners, and if they face a hard point, like a crystal point, they don't cut it, they smash it. Okay. Sometimes the line is not perfect straight line because the tool is not perfect like the advanced tool. So you can easily understand that there is a big difference between this style and this tool and the first style and the advanced tool. So yes, for sure, there are we have writings reflect high technology, and we have writing reflect primitive technology.
That's really amazing. Are there anything to discern from what they? I mean, can you read them, or do they read differently and they're undeciphered?
Okay, this is also something very good to answer. I was talking about a statue with some of my clients last week, and yes, it happened that we had tourists last week, despite the coronavirus and those problems. I was talking about this statue, and they told me, Mohammed, the statue looks like the same idea of the dynasties. So how come? So I told them, because the dynasties inherited the same style, the same principles, the same religion, the same beliefs, the same traditions, and they kept all of them for 3,000 years. So it is not easy to say that the writings mean something different, because the writings or the language of the dynasties is the same language of the pre-Egyptians or the older Egyptians. But let me tell you something. We don't have a very good example, or we don't have a person who can say, I can read ancient Egyptian language because I know this language. No, we all depend on the translation happened first by the English and then by the French and by the Egyptians in the modern days, including me. I also have my own input in this field. Okay, but it will be wrong to claim that we know this language for sure. I can claim we know 60, maximum 70% of it. Okay, we don't understand at least 30%. Also, we must say that this language also is multi-levels because it is iconographic language. We read from what we understand. Okay, like you can wave to me with a white tissue. Okay, I can you are sending me a message, but I can receive another message. So that is what happened, that the ancient Egyptian wrote something on the wall. I can claim I can read it and understand something, but maybe the message was not like this because I depend on my understanding, which sometimes makes sense because of my other understanding about my environment, about so many other things. Maybe one vocabulary will be correct, but the rest are not. Okay, but I am sure that this language has clear meaning. Okay, or let's say call it first meaning, and then there are deeper meanings which we cannot easily understand. So yes, maybe some of the writings are telling us so many stories, but unfortunately we don't get the meaning.
I have a question if I could jump in here. Jared, just so you know, we probably got like 10 minutes left. Um, is the top of the pyramid missing? Was there a capstone that's not there anymore?
All the Egyptologists and so many of the other people will tell you yes, the capstone is missing. Maybe I am one of the few people I'll tell you no, it's not missing. My belief, the Great Pyramid was designed like this, with a missing capstone. That is the original design.
Okay.
Because we found so many of what we call it shrines, like that granite shrine in Elephantine Island, okay, where they put the statue of the god, which is something we can talk about it later. That shrine has a shape of a pyramid, the ceiling of the shrine, like a hut. It looks like a pyramid shape. They designed this pyramid shape the same like the Great Pyramid, with a missing peak. It is not an angle at the end. It's a missing part.
Okay.
So I think this is also part of the design, is to prepare this flat surface in order to receive the cosmic energy or the cosmic waves. That's why I can easily say that the pyramid, one of its functions is a communication tower.
All right. Now
Because,
looking at the pyramid itself, it seems, you know, like it's obviously rocky and it looks like there's steps or whatever, but thousands of years ago it was smooth, right?
exactly, very smooth. And that means what? That means that the pyramid can receive rays, can receive waves, and can reflect, also playing as a mirror, these waves and these energies. So can play both receiver and transmitter.
So the shell of the pyramid, are there any pieces of that around, or have they been
Yes,
taken
a
away?
few. some few blocks.
Okay. Where are they?
Some still attached to the pyramid. Okay, and some were taken and used to build some of the ancient churches and mosques, and we know some of them.
Okay.
Like there is a mosque in Cairo called Sultan Hassan Mosque, was built entirely from the casing stone of the Great Pyramid. And guess what? This mosque is still in a great condition till now. It is almost 700 years old, but it doesn't look like 700 years old.
Yeah.
Is there any hieroglyphs or anything left on the mosque,
No,
or
zero.
did they turn it all inside out?
No, we didn't have a single carving.
But
So
they were hard. There were carvings on the pyramid shell. Say.
no, I don't think so. I think that the pyramid was completely plain.
Well, here's another question.
Or I'm talking with the original shape. Maybe later someone maybe add some writings, but my guessing the original design is super plain, shiny, polished surface.
Yeah.
So, oh, sorry. Do you got another question?
No, go ahead, Jared. I'll give you about 10 minutes, and I'm gonna bust in and end you.
Okay. So, Mohammed, on the idea that the pyramid shape is eight-sided, is there a chance that it might be self-evident, but is it possible that the dynastic Egyptians came and made it a four-sided pyramid, or is it in its original shape as an eight-sided pyramid? And if we were to reconstruct that in at least virtually, or at least in 3D, if we were to recreate the eight-sidedness of what it once was, is it possible we make an assumption that the exterior and that the finish, that it was all stone, but isn't it possible that it could be metal or some other material, that the final layer with the nubs and everything else with some shearing strength had a finish that is just no longer on it?
Okay, let's also set a fact that the dynasties didn't do anything to the pyramids, especially the big pyramids. They came and they found them like this, and they dealt with them like this. And my guessing that the pyramids were beaming more energy than nowadays. Nowadays we can feel a little bit like 1-2% maximum. I think at the time of the dynasties, it was like high level of energy, like more than 20-30%. So the dynasties understood that the pyramids are also playing as huge centers, healing centers. Okay, but their abilities to change or to add to the design, it was very limited. Maybe they used the surrounding area by adding tombs, by building small mastabas. It's like a small tomb. It's like a mausoleum, a small level of mausoleum or a small structure. That is their abilities. One of the things many people don't know, that the Great Pyramid was covered completely with very fine limestone, pure calcium carbonate. The third pyramid was completely covered with granite, with some of them had the knobs you're talking about. The second pyramid had a mix, half granite and half limestone. The first half to the base was granite. The second half to the top was limestone. But when we talk about other pyramids were covered with another material, either metal or something else, and this will be exclusive in this show. This will be included in my book, which I hope to release very soon. I'm finishing the last chapter. The bent pyramid at Dahshur, in my opinion, and that is an opinion supported by also some scientists, it was covered with mica, white mica.
Oh, that's interesting.
We found tens of thousands maybe more, or hundreds of thousands of broken pieces of mica in the surrounding area of the pinned pyramid. And mica is a very good insulation material. So again, if we are talking about energy activities, the place will be insulated. This energy will not be wasted outside. It will be concentrated inside the structure.
Could the mica have been on the ground as part of a surface that, in the sense of it being a power plant, you do think it was on the surface of the pyramid and not on maybe paneling or like floor, like it was like a surface on the ground? You think it was on the pyramid itself?
Yes. So many people asked me this question. Okay, number one, that the area itself doesn't have mica. So mica is not a natural stone in this area. Okay, and we don't find a stone. We don't find big pieces of mica. We found broken pieces of mica, like broken pieces of glass. When you have a glass window and it is broken, so it will be pieces. So we have the same design exactly. Slim pieces of mica, like 2 centimeters, 3 centimeters, 5, some maximum 10, but it's like a piece of glass. So from the shape of it, you understand that it was a layer covering the side of the pyramid, or the sides of the pyramid. So we are not talking about a big stone. It's not a stone. It's like a slice.
Wow.
So I know we only have a few more minutes, so I have to ask you before we get all the way to the end, is there anything else that's new that does reflect resonance frequency or a tunnel system, or something that, there's the other thing, like the Osirion. I started with this. Is it possible that it was just built on top of because it had already been buried? Could the Osirion or other structures have been above ground at one point? No.
The Osirion was designed to be under the ground. And look, as I told you earlier, and people must think carefully about this, the size and the challenges. Okay, if we are looking for a regular function, so we must make it easy for the workers. But if we are looking for an important function, so it doesn't matter the challenges and any problem. It must be fixed because we are targeting this design. So when you go to the Osirion, it must be under the ground because the other temple, the dynastic temple, city first temple, was built exactly at the top level of the Osirion. Okay, and there are earlier structures in the same area, much earlier than City First Temple. City First Temple, let's say, was about around 1100 BC. We have some structures 3000 BC and older, are the same level or a little bit lower than the level of City First Temple. So it means that was the ancient level of the ground. But the Osirion is under the ground. And the Osirion, the design of the temple, if we can mistakenly call it temple, the external walls made out of huge blocks of quartz or quartzite. From where? From Cairo. Between Abydos and Cairo, about 500 kilometers. And the inner design, the inner blocks, the blocks of the inner design from rose granite from Aswan. And the distance between Aswan and Abydos, another 500 kilometers. So what is happening? Like, why they don't use one quarry, all will be quartzite or all will be rose granite? Why they go north 500 kilometers, and then they go south 500 kilometers, and they bring stones from there and from the other side, they could use the local stone, which is sandstone, and there is limestone mountain there. Okay, but because the function requires those two materials, quartzite and rose granite, in huge designs. Some of the blocks are weighing more than 150 tons. Okay, so definitely the Osirion was under the ground and serving a very important function, dealing with energy again.
So is there anything standing out, at least as far as we can go for this interview, is there anything standing out to you right now that is been on your radar or is new, that is something very exciting that, I mean, as far as you're concerned, as far as a significant find pointing to that older frequency resonating managing society? Is there anything standing out right now? I mean, the mica thing, I wish we could talk longer because I agree with you on the mica. If that's what you found, that's incredibly exciting. So I don't want to let that get shadowed. But just because this is our first interview and it's my last chance to ask you a question for this interview, I have to ask you if there's anything else you've also seen that is as exciting.
Okay, maybe I'll tell you something strange a little bit. It is not about sites, it is not about structures. It's about the ancient Egyptian philosophy and how they understood time is going to, or the circles of time. According to the ancient Egyptians, we live in 5 cycles. What they call it, the sun cycles. Each cycle is 24,000 years, 12,000 years development, and 12,000 years, like 12,000 years evolution, and 12,000 years devolution. So the good news is we just finished the last part of the 5th cycle, which is the cycle of darkness. So we finished the 12,000 years of devolution. And the Mayans were trying to tell us this. 2012 was not the end of the world. It was the end of the cycle. We call it the cycle of Amun. And Amun means the hidden sun, or the cycle of darkness. So according to the ancient Egyptian belief, we are starting a new cycle called the cycle of Kibber, the scarab. And the scarab in ancient Egypt means new beginning, the newborn sun. It's a cycle of dawn, cycle of awareness, and cycle of light. So we are about to witness a new cycle of light, and the human awareness is going to change. It will be better and will be like easy to recognize what is happening, because it's going to be the cycle of light. So what is happening nowadays, this pandemic, that is not something bad. Actually, it's a beginning of something good.
From darkness to light.
Yes.
Mohamed, do you want to tell everybody where they can find you?
They can find me here in Cairo. I live near the pyramids. On Facebook, they search for my group, Guide of Egypt. And
I'll put a link in the description. I'll put a link for you down in the description below.
Yes, and my website is Beauty Egypt Tours.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for spending time with us today.
You are welcome, Michael. It's always a pleasure to talk about ancient Egypt and all the Egyptian wonders.
Well, we'll definitely have to get you back on again. I'm sure Jared has a ton more conversation or questions for you.
I believe so.
Jared, you'll be back with me for the close, and we'll be right back on Conflict Radio right after this. Welcome back to Conflict Radio. That was Mohamed Ibrahim. I hope everybody enjoyed that interview. Man, that was fascinating.
Yeah. What do you think?
You know, I had a lot more questions than I did, but I didn't want to throw you off of I guess where you were going and the things you had going on. I did want to get in the capstone thing at the end. What do you think about that? You think there's a capstone, or you think he's right?
Oh, there was definitely capstones on all the pyramids, but their actual material and what they would have been. And something to again point out for people is that the pyramids, the oldest ones, these most advanced ones, were 8-sided. They're not 4-sided. They're 8-sided structures. And a lot like you've seen a house that has gone from having direct TV to cable to direct TV, or changed owners and there's like 6 different satellites screwed on or bolted to a house. We literally have no idea what the surface, the actual finished technologies that could have been bolted, glued, epoxied. We think of the pyramids as these big, even if it was an 8-sided structure with a really cool cap on it, whether, there's theories about it being gold and everything else. So that's not the relevant point. The relevant point is, how did it focus energy either to it or through it or from it and then into the air? And as we know a lot about frequencies and resonance, they resonate out from not just the point, but through the sides and through the type of material that's used and through the stones of what, when we were talking about the foundational structure of the platform or the palisade of the area that you stand on and you tour around and you walk and you take it for granted. Well, yeah, I'm standing on a courtyard. His point is, and what we were talking about was how the foundational material itself was meant to process and to continue that vibrational information. Think of it more like information and energy. So these are all things that tie together with that very top point and or the shape and sides of these structures, and then all the missing elements, all the metal and wood and other materials that would have existed in standing structures that are just gone. And so we don't have that, but it's important for people to consider all of those possibilities and to not get trapped into picturing loincloth slaves dragging big blocks up, ramps, which is very possible and very logical for a dynastic period. But also, to his point, dynastic people were smart, and so were Sumerians, and so were Greeks, and so was everybody in Asia and in the Americas. There was a lot of smart inventions and things going on, and part of it was that decrementing down of a time period where older, more advanced technologies were being forgotten, but the math, pi, Pythagorean theorem, there were many, many things going on as the technology, the Baghdad battery. There was many, many things that were still being used to electroplate metal and to do things that even now, literally, there's a cathedral with metal plating in it that has a thinner nano layer than our cell phones use for any of the internal non-moving flash memory or parts. And so there are technologies that continue to be available. They just got adapted to carving or adapted to cloth or textiles or just an ornamental artifact. So the dynastic Egyptians still did really cool stuff. And I know that we don't talk about that much, but it was a good point of his. And also, just as far as these other technologies, it's just really neat to have this conversation with someone that I think every listener out there, I really am excited, because this is someone that none of us would get to hear from. If he wasn't doing interviews, you would have to be in Egypt right now, or ever, or once, and you would have to be on a tour, and you would not have gotten all the info we just talked about. It, you may have gotten some of it at a site, but you don't need a deep history or understanding of all this. But as you look into just scratching the surface of this lost ancient advanced human past, just getting a broad sense of it and hearing someone like Mohamed speak is just, I think, pretty dang impressive for episode 50.
Yeah, I'll be honest with you. Egypt has always been one of those places where, they'd be cool to go. But I mean, if I don't make it there, I don't make it there, whatever. I can see the pictures on TV. But after today's show, it seems like I really wouldn't mind taking a ride there. Or I guess I can't take a ride there, but you know what I mean. I wouldn't mind going there and checking it out. It might be something I'll I want to do so I can get up with Mohammed and get into some places and maybe do a little bit of a tour that, the normal tourist wouldn't get to see, I suppose.
Oh, totally. I I can only think of John Anthony West, of course, for those that knew him or didn't, was the man that brought Robert Schoch to the conclusion and what is now a well-known fact that the Sphinx is much, much older than it is. But this is a man who spent over 40 years in Egypt, originally as a journalist and then also as a tour guide and researcher. And John Anthony West has a great quote that I'm going to have to bring up for people, which is, he said, you have to come to Egypt. It's the difference between talking about sex and having it. That's what he said about how important it is and different it is, the distinction. No matter what you see in photography, going to Egypt is that profoundly different. Like Muhammad pointed out about the energy, the sensations, that even in Egyptian and dynastic times, the profound level of energy that was still emanating from these broken high technology machines, there was still quite a sensation. And he pointed out that you can sense something, and it activates differently depending on your gene expression, depending on where you are, who you are as a person. But it affects everyone that goes. Everyone that I've spoken to all talks about, it's not about being overwhelmed about how impressive everything is. It's an untangible third eye, human consciousness, collective and or genetic memory. There is something about being in Egypt that affects everyone universally and uniquely depending on the site and where they're at. So I agree with you. If things, when we can travel and when things can calm down, I know Cliff Dunning and Earth Ancients is going again. There's just a significant, obviously, interest in this area, but to go meet someone like Muhammad in person and do one of these tours would be pretty amazing.
Yeah. So I guess we're just gonna go ahead and wrap it up. Jared, you want to tell everyone where they can find you?
Yeah, if you would like to grab my book, It's Not Aliens, Worse, It's Us, Discovering a Lost History, it's on Amazon. If you'd like a signed copy for a few dollars more, go to notaliens.com. Also, I do have a member area. I will be having exclusive research videos, and it'll be worth your while to give me your large latte money now, because I'm not going to get banned for either theories or opinions. And this is a great way to get a free copy of the book signed. If you'd like to sign up for a year, I'll be also offering a 6-month deal, and there is a month-to-month. So please look for me on notaliens.com. And, thanks again for putting on like one of the best guests ever.
Awesome, man. I'm really glad you enjoyed it. And remember, you can always find Conflict Radio online. Just go to www.conflictradio.net. We are available on all of your normal podcast catchers, Spreaker, Apple iTunes, iHeart Podcasts, you name it, we're there. And episode 50 is history. So batten down the hatches and be safe.